ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaste my dear friends. In this video, I am going to describe and explain Vasishtha, Yogavashistha Maharamayana. This is one of the most important Advaita Vedanta treatises. This book helps sadhakas who aspire to achieve self-realization leading to liberation. The earliest work in Sanskrit or Vedanta of the highest order is the Vasishtha Maharamayana or Yogavashistha. This monumental work is one without a second in Sanskrit literature. Vasishtha, the great sage, taught the principles of Vedanta to his royal people Sri Rama, the victor of Ramayana and hero of the epic Ramayana. He narrated beautiful and interesting stories to illustrate the principles. The book is written in the language of Sanskrit by Valmiki. It is the crushed jewel of all the works on the Vedanta. It is a masterpiece. A study of the book raises a man to the lofty heights of divine splendor and bliss. It is really a vast store of wisdom. Those who practice Atma Chintana or Brahm Abhyasa or Vedantic meditation will find a priceless treasure in this marvelous book. He who studies the book with great interest and one-pointedness of mind cannot go without attaining self-realization. The practical hints on sadhana are unique. Even the most worldly minded man will become dispassionate and will attain peace of mind, solace, and consolation. The Yoga Vasishtha was once one of the most widely read books in India. It greatly influenced the general philosophical thought. The late Pandit Brindavana Saraswati of Banaras had read the Yoga Vasishtha 165 times. It is a comprehensive, deep, systematic, and literary philosophical work of ancient India. The name is derived from the sage Vasishtha. Though the book is called Yoga Vasishtha, it treats of jnana only. Practical yoga is dealt with in two stories. The word yoga is used in the title of this work in its generic sense. It is known by the name Jnana Vasishtam also. Rishi Valmiki, the author of the Ramayana, compiled this remarkable book. He related the whole of Yoga Vasishtha to Rishi Bhardwaja as it passed between Sri Rama and sage Vasishtha. There are two books, namely the Brihat Yoga Vasishtha and the Laghu Yoga Vasishtha. The former is a big book containing 32,000 granthas or shlokas or 64,000 lines. Brihat means big. The latter book contains 6,000 granthas. Laghu means small. The Yoga Vasishtha contains a system of ancient philosophical thought unique in its kind. This is a valuable heritage from the hoary past of this sacred land known as Bharatvarsha or Aryavarta. The system of thought that is presented in this book is a highly valuable contribution not only to Indian philosophical thought but also to the philosophical thought of the world at large. Those whose minds are turned from this world, who have become indifferent towards the objects of this world, and who are thirsting for liberation, will be really benefited by a study of this precious book. They will find in this book a vast mind of knowledge and practical spiritual instructions for guidance in their daily life. The Yogavashistha first enunciates a doctrine in its various aspects and then makes it very lucid through interesting stories. This is a book for constant study as many times as possible. It must be read and reread, studied and mastered. The Yoga Vasishtha deals with the subject of affecting union of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul amidst all the trials and tribulations of life. It prescribes various directions for the union of the Jivatman and Paramatman, the nature of Brahma or Sat, and the various methods of attaining self-realization are vividly described in this book. The main enquiry regarding the final beatitude or summum bonum is beautifully dealt with. This book embodies in itself the science of ontology, the knowledge of the self, the principles of psychology, the science of emotions, the tenets of ethics and practical morality, discourses on theology, etc. The philosophy of Yoga Vasishtha is sublime. The book consists of 6 prakarnas or sections, namely: first, Vairagya Prakarna on dispassion or indifference; 2. Mumukshu Prakarna on longing for liberation; 3. Utpatti Prakarna on creation or origin; 4th, Sthiti Prakarna on preservation or existence; 5. Upshanti Prakarna on dissolution or quiescence; and 6th, Nirvana Prakarna on liberation. According to Yoga Vasishtha, this world of experience with various objects, time, space, and laws is a creation of the mind, that is, an idea or kalpana, just as objects are created by the mind in dream, so also everything is created by the mind in the waking state also. Expansion of the mind is sankalpa. Sankalpa, through its power of differentiation, generates this universe. Time and space are only mental creations. Through the play of the mind in objects, nearness seems to be a great distance and vice versa. Through the force of the mind, a kalpa is regarded as a moment and vice versa. A moment of waking experience may be experienced as years in dream. The mind can have the experience of miles within a short span, and miles can also be experienced as a span only. Mind is not anything different and separate from Brahma. Brahma manifests himself as mind. Mind is endowed with creative power. Mind is the cause of bondage and liberation. The doctrine of Drishti Srishti Vada is expounded in the Yoga Vasistha. In some places, Vasistha speaks of the Ajat, Ajativada of Sri Gaudapadacharya, the great Guru of Sri Sankara. You begin to see, and then there is creation. This is Drishti Srishti Vada. This world does not exist at all in the three periods of time. This is Ajativada or non-origin of the universe. This is a most inspiring book. Every student of Vedanta keeps this book for constant study. It is a constant companion for a student on the path of Jnana Yoga. It is not a Prakriya Grantha. It does not deal with the Prakriya or categories of Vedanta. Only advanced students can take up this book for their study. Beginners should first study the Atma Bodha, Tattva Bodha, and Atma Anatma Viveka of Sri Shankara and the Panch Panchikarna before they take up the study of Yoga Vasistha. Moksha according to Yoga Vasistha. Moksha according to Yoga Vasistha is the attainment of the essence of the bliss of Brahma through knowledge of the self. It is freedom from births and deaths. It is the immaculate and imperishable seat of Brahma, wherein there are neither sankalpas nor vasanas. The mind attains its quiescence here. All the pleasures of the whole world are a mere drop when compared to the infinite bliss of moksha. That which is called moksha is neither in Devaloka nor in Patala nor on earth. When all desires are destroyed, the extinction of the expansive mind alone is moksha. Moksha has neither space nor time in itself, nor is there in it any state external or internal. If the illusory idea of I or Ahankara perishes, the end of thoughts, which is Maya, is experienced, and there is, and that is moksha. If the illusory idea of I or Ahankara perishes, the end of thoughts, which is Maya, is experienced, and that is moksha. Extinction of all vasanas constitutes moksha. Sankalpa is only sansara. It, its annihilation is moksha. It is only sankalpa destroyed beyond resurrection that constitutes the immaculate Brahmic seat or moksha. Moksha is freedom from all sorts of pains, sarvadukha nivarti, and the attainment of supreme bliss. Pramananda Prapatti. Dukkha means pain or suffering. Births and deaths generates the greatest pain. Freedom from births and deaths is freedom from all sorts of pain. Brahma Jnana or knowledge of the self alone will give moksha. The quiescence produced in the mind by the absence of desire for objects is moksha. Moksha is not a thing to be achieved, it is already there. You are in reality not bound. You are ever pure and free. If you were really bound, you could never become free. You have to know that you are the immortal, all pervading self. To know that it is that that is to become that. This is moksha. This is the goal of life. This is the summum bonum of existence. That state of non-attraction of the mind when neither I nor any other self exists for it, and when it abandons the pleasures of the world, should be known as the path that leads to moksha. The absolute, according to the Yoga Vasistha, is the Satchitananda Brahma, who is non-dual, partless, infinite, self-luminous, changeless, and eternal. He is the ultimate substance. He is the unity behind the subject and the object of experience. He is only homogeneous essence. He is all pervading. He is beyond description. He is nameless, colorless, odorless, tasteless, timeless, spaceless, deathless, and birthless. Qualification of the student. He who he whose mind is calm, who is endowed with the four means of salvation, who is free from defects and impurities, can realize the self intuitively through meditation. The scriptures, the spiritual perceptor cannot show us Brahma. They can only guide us and give us a hint by way of antagonies and illustrations, analogies and illustrations. Shanti, quiescence of mind, Santosha, contentment, Satsanga, association with sages, and Vichara, Atmic inquiry are the four sentinels who guard the gates of moksha. If you make friendship with them, you will easily enter the kingdom of moksha. Even if you keep company with one of them, he will surely introduce you to his other three companions. The student should have an unshakable conviction that Brahma is the only reality, that everything is Brahma, that Brahma is the very self of all beings. Then he should realize this truth through direct cognition or intuition, aproksha anubhava. This direct knowledge of Brahma alone is the means of liberation. There is no difference between the waking and dream experiences. The waking state is a long dream. The dream experiences becomes unreal as soon as man comes back to his waking state. Even so, the waking state becomes unreal for a sage who has attained self-realization. For the man who dreams, the waking state becomes unreal. A sense of Yogavashistha. If you attain knowledge of the self or Brahma Jnana, you will be freed from the trammels of births and deaths. All your doubts will vanish and all karmas will perish. It is through one's own efforts alone that the immortal, all blissful Brahma seat can be obtained. The slayer of the Atma is only the mind. The form of the mind is only Sankalpa. The true nature of the mind consists in the Vasanas. The actions of the mind alone are truly termed actions, karmas. The universe is nothing but the mind manifesting as such through the power of Brahma. The mind contemplating on the body becomes the body itself, and then enmeshed in it is afflicted by it. The mind manifests itself as the external world in the shape of pains or pleasures. The mind subjectively is consciousness. Objectively, it is this universe by its enemy, discrimination. The mind is rendered to the quiescent state of Parbrahma. The real bliss is that which arises when the mind, divested of all desires through the eternal jnana, destroys its subtle form. The sankalpas and vasanas which you generate enmesh you in a net. The self-light of Parbrahma alone is appearing as the mind or this universe. Persons without Atmic inquiry will see as real this world, which is nothing but the nature of Sankalpas. The expansion of this mind alone is Sankalpas. Sankalpa, through its power of indifferentiation, generates this universe. Extinction of sankalpas alone is moksha. The enemy of the Atman is this impure mind only, which is filled with excessive delusion and host of worldly thoughts. There is no vessel on this earth to wade through the ocean of rebirths other than mastery of the antagonistic mind. The original sprout of this painful ahankara with its tender stem of rebirths at length ramifies itself everywhere with its long branches of mine and thine, and yielding its unripe fruits of death, disease, old age, and sorrows. This tree can be destroyed to its root only by the fire of jnana. All the heterogeneous visibles perceived through the origin of senses are only unreal. That which is real is Parbrahma or the Supreme Soul. If all objects which have an enchanting appearance becomes eyesores and present the very reverse of the former feeling, then the mind is destroyed. All your pro- properties are useless. All wealth lands you in danger. Freedom from desires will take you to the eternal blissful abode. Destroy vasanas and sankalpas. Kill egoism. Annihilate this mind. Enquire yourself with the four means. Meditate on the pure, immortal, all-pervading self or Atman. Get knowledge of the self and attain immortality, everlasting peace, eternal bliss, freedom and perfections. A Jivan Mukta or a realized soul roams about happily. He has neither attractions nor attachments. He has nothing to attain nor has he anything to give up. He works for the well-being of the world. He is free from desires, egoism and greed. He is in solitude through the works in the busiest part of a city. May you all drink all the nectar of Yogavashistha. May you all taste the honey of wisdom of the self. May you all become Jivan Muktas in this very birth. May the blessings of sage Vasishtha, sage Valmiki, and other Brahma Vidya Gurus be upon you all. May you all partake of the essence of the bliss of Brahma. In this age of cultivation of universal learning and its investigation into the deep recesses of the dead language of antiquity, when the literati of both continents are so sedulously employed in exploring the rich and almost inexhaustible mines of the ancient literature of this country, it has given an impetus to the philanthropy of our wise and benign government, to the institution of a searching inquiry into the sacred language of this land. And when the restoration of the long lost works of its venerable sages and authors through the instrumentality of the greatest bibliomaniac servants and linguists in the several presidency has led the literary Asiatic societies of the East and West to the publication of the rarest and most valuable Sanskrit manuscripts. It cannot be deemed preposterous in me to presume to lay before the public a work of no less merit and sanctity than any hitherto published. The Yoga Vasishtha is the earliest work on yoga or speculative and abstruse philosophy delivered by the Venerable Vedic sage Vasishtha to his royal pupil Rama, the victor of Ravana and hero of the first epic Ramayana, and written in the language of Valmiki, the prime bard in pure Sanskrit, the author of the popular epic and the Homer of India. It embodies in itself the loci communes or common places relating to the science of ontology, the knowledge of Sat, real entity, and Asat, unreal non-entity, the principles of psychology or doctrines of the passions and feelings, the speculations of metaphysics in dwelling upon our cognition, volition, and other faculties of the mind, and the tenets of ethics and practical morality. Besides, there are a great many percepts on theology and the nature of divinity and discourses on spirituality and theosophy, all delivered in the form of Plato's dialogues between the sages and tending to the main enquiry concerning the true felicity, final dutitude, or summum bonum of all true philosophy. These topics have singly and jointly contributed to the structure of several separate systems of science and philosophy in succeeding ages and have formed the subjects of study both with the juvenile and senile classes of people in former and present times, and I may say almost among all nations in all countries throughout the civilized world. It is felt at present to be a matter of the highest importance by the native community at large to repress the growing ardor of our youth in political polemics and practical tactics that are equally pernicious to and destructive of the felicity of their temporal and future life by a revival of the humble instructions of their peaceful preceptors of old and reclaiming them to the simple modes of life led by their forefathers from the perverted course now gaining ground among them under the influence of Western refinement. Outward peace with internal tranquility is the teaching of our Shastras, and these united with contentment and indifference to worldly pleasure were believed according to the tenets of yoga doctrine to form the perfect man, a character which the Aryans have invariably preserved amidst revolutions of ages and empires. It is the degeneracy of the rising generation, however, owing to their adoption of foreign habits and manners from an utter ignorance of their own moral code, which the publication of the present work is intended to obviate. From the description of the Hindu mind given by Max Muller in his History of the Ancient Literature of India, it will appear that the esoteric faith of the Aryan Indian is of that realistic cast as the Platonic, whose theory of ontology viewed all existence, even that of the celestial bodies, with their movements among the percepta of sense, and marked them among the unreal phantoms or vain mirage, as the Hindu calls them, that are interesting in appearance but useless to observe. They may be the best of all percepta, but fall very short of that perfection which the mental eye contemplates in its meditation yoga. The Hindu yogi views the visible world exactly in the same light as Plato has represented it in the simile commencing the seventh book of his Republic. He compared mankind to prisoners in a cave, chained in one particular attitude so as to behold only an ever varying multiplicity of shadows projected through the opening of the cave upon the wall before them by certain unseen realities behind. The philosopher alone, who by training or inspiration is enabled to turn his face from these visions and contemplate with his mind, that can see at once the unchangeable reality amidst these transient shadows. The first record that we have of Vasishtha is that he was the author of the seventh mandala of the Rig Veda, Astaka. He is next mentioned as Prohita or joint minister with Viswamitra to King Sudasa, and to have a violent contest with his rival for the ministerial office. He is said to have accompanied the army of Sudasa when that king is said to have conquered the 10 invading chiefs who had crossed over the river Purshuni. Viswamitra accompanied Sudasa himself beyond Vipasa, Hippasis or B, and Sudasru, Hisudra, Satluj. The enemy, the enmity and implacable hatred of two families of Vasishtha and Viswamitra's four generations, from subjects prominent throughout the Vedic antiquity and preserved in the tradition of ages. Another cause of it was that Harishchandra, king of Ayodhya, was cursed by Vasishtha, whereupon he made Viswamitra his priest to the annoyance of Vasishtha, although the office of Brahma was held by him. In the Brahma period, we find Vasishtha forming a family title for the whole Vasishtha race, still continuing as a Gotra name, and that these Vasishtha continued as hereditary gurus and prohitas to the kings of the solar race, priest in every ceremony which could not be held by other Brahmins according to the Satapatha Brahma, and particularly the Indra ceremony had always to be performed by a Vasishtha because it was revealed to their ancestor the sage Vasishtha only. The rishis do not see Indra clearly, but Vasishtha saw him. Indra said, I will tell you, O Brahma, so that all men who are born will have a Vasishtha for his Prohita, the Vedic rishi, but of some one late member of that family. Thus, our work of Yoga Vasishtha has no claim or pretension to its being the composition of the Vedic sage, but as one propounded by the sage and written by Valmiki in his modern Sanskrit. Here the question is whether Vasishtha, the preceptor of Rama, was the Vedic Vasishtha or one of his descendants. I must leave for others to determine. Again, in the later Aryanka period, we have an account of a theologian Vasishtha given in the Arshik Upanishad as holding a dialogue on the nature of Atma or soul among the sages. Viswamitra, Jamdagni, Bharadvaja, Gautama and himself when Vasishtha, appealing to the opinion of Kapila, obtained their assent. This appears very probable to be the theological author of our yoga and eminent above his contemporaries in his knowledge of Kapila Yoga Shastra, which was then current from the sages having been a contemporary with King Sagra, a predecessor of Rama. The Vasishtha wear a bread lock of hair on the right side. The Athreya wear three breads. The Angiras have five breads. The Bhargus are bald and all others have a single crest. Without dilating any longer with further accounts relating to sage Vasishtha, of which many more might be gathered from various sastras, I shall add in the conclusion of the following notice, which is taken of this work by Professor Williams. There is, says he, a remarkable work called Vasishtha Ramayana or Yogavashistha or Vasishtha Maharamayana in the form of an exhortation with illustrative narratives addressed by Vasishtha to his pupil, the youthful Rama, on the best means of attaining true happiness and considered to have been composed as an appendage to the Ramayana by Valmiki himself. There is another work of the same nature called the Adhyatma Ramayana, which is attributed to Vyasa and treat of the moral and theological subjects connected with the life and acts of that great hero of Indian history. Many other works are extant in the vernacular dialects having the same theme for their subject, which it is needless to notice in this. Vasishtha, known as the wisest of sages, like Solomon, the wisest of men, and Aurelius, the wisest of emperors, puts forth in the first part and in the mouth of Rama the great question of the vanity of the world, which is shown synthetically to a great length from the state of all living existences, the instinct, inclinations, and passions of man and nature of their aims and objects, with some discussions about destiny, necessity, activity, and the state of the soul and spirit. The second part embraces various directions for the union of the individual with the universal abstract existence, the supreme spirit, the subjective and the objective truth, and the common topics of all speculative philosophy. Thus says Milton, the end of learning is to know God. So the Persian adage, Akhiral ilm buad ilmi khuda. So this is just the introduction of Yoga Vasishtha. In the next videos we will start the real and the actual teachings of Yoga Vasishtha. Thank you for watching this video. Namaskar, my dear friends. Thank you. Namaste.